and Cain, has become cognizant, I would say, of what he did and what he is. Right? So it's another entrance into a form of self-consciousness. It's the self-consciousness that Adam and Eve developed was painful enough. They become aware of their own vulnerability and their nakedness and perhaps even their capacity for evil. But Cain becomes aware of his voluntary engagement with evil itself and sees that as a crucial human capability. And that's something modern people, it's no wonder we don't take it seriously. Like I know in the academy and among intellectual circles for decades, the idea of evil has been, it's like, what are you, medieval or something? The whole idea of evil, that's a non-starter as an intellectual starting place, as a topic. And that's something that I've just been unable to understand, because I cannot understand how you could possibly have more than a cursory knowledge of the history of the 20th century, much less a deep knowledge of the history of the 20th century, and to walk away with any other conclusion than, well, good might not exist, but evil, hey, the evidence for that is so overwhelming that only willful blindness could possibly explain denying its existence. And that was actually a useful discovery for me, because I also concluded, perhaps, that if it was true evil existed, then it was true by inference that its opposite existed. Because the opposite of evil, let's say the evil of the concentration camp, let's say, or we could get more specific about it, we could say there's this one thing that used to happen in Auschwitz where they would take people off the incoming trains, those who lived, that weren't stacked around the outside of the train cars and, froze to death because it was too cold. Those who only had to be stuck in the middle where it was warm enough so that maybe the old people died because they suffocated, but at least some of them were alive when they made it to Auschwitz, and then they took those poor people out. And one of the tricks that the guards used to play on them was to have the newly arrived prisoners hoist like 100-pound sacks of wet salt and carry them from one side of the compound. And these compounds were big. This was a city. It wasn't like a gymnasium. It was like a city. There were tens of thousands of people there. They'd have them carry the sack of wet salt from one side of the compound to the other and then back. Right? And that was to make a mockery out of the notion that work would set you free. It's like, no, you work here, but there's nothing productive about it. The whole point, it's exactly the opposite of sacrifice in some sense. It's we're going to make you act out working, but all it will do is speed your demise. And maybe we can decorate it up a little bit, because not only will it speed up your demise, it will do it in a very painful way, while simultaneously increasing the probability that other people's demises will be painful and sped up. It's a work of art, that's for sure. And to know about that sort of thing and not regard it as evil means, well, you can figure out what it means for yourself.